It's time for AI News, brought to you by AIAW Podcast.
We have this kind of middle break to just speak about some exciting news articles happening, and then we'll continue the discussion about GPT-3. But before that, each of one can pick some kind of top news story that we want to speak about. Anyone that wants to go first? No?
I went first last time, so I don't want to go first this time.
All right, so then, because I always have a couple of those, so I will
shoot them off.
Then. Right, so I found three interesting actually articles. The first one is actually that Amazon is launched Q. I hope it doesn't have anything to do with the gossip about Q Star, but launches Q, which is a business chatbot powered by generative artificial intelligence, which is basically helping the employees to streamline day-to-day communication and basically we do different tasks like generating blog posts and etc. So obviously they don't like to use different type of or others. Chat GPTs, let's call
Perhaps
them
it's
like
a
that.
James Bond Q kind of thing.
Yes, it might be, but in any case, they are going into the race, and you can see that the giants are actually fighting for more of these chatbots now coming in. The second thing, it was a very interesting because of my chemistry background, is that Google DeepMind researchers have discovered 2.2 million new crystal structures. All right, it took us. I don't know how many years to come to what we know today, and just basically by utilizing this AI tool from Google DeepMind called GNOME, they have actually found 2.2 million crystals, and 381 of those crystals right now are going to be available for scientists, so they can actually start developing products and services on this. And this is huge. We are coming to a point where basically AI can help us actually create more sustainable and more better performing actually materials.
AI is empowering researchers,
yes,
even in chemistry.
Yes, imagine what Marie Curie would do to have an AI tool like this and not die by radiation poisoning. And the second thing, the last one is actually a very interesting news, which is actually the State of European Tech report came out. This is basically a report that is looking at Europe, especially...
It's from Europe as well, right?
Yes,
because
exactly.
I think it's a bit biased when I say
this. It is a little bit biased, but basically it's a report that is looking at the European market, especially the startup, the tech industry, and etc. And one part of that is very interesting, which is focusing on AI. And the interesting part is that right now Europe is actually outgrowing the number of practitioners working with AI for a bit, so it's increasing very much. So right now the ratio is 108,000 AI professionals working in Europe in comparison to 87,000 from US. If you read the report,
is it relative to the number of people, the population?
No, it's actually how many people are working with that. So it's not a ratio.
So in Europe, is it like 350 million people or something? And in US, it's like 300?
Yeah, pretty much.
So it's not really a fair comparison then?
Yeah. Is it? Does it matter?
It's a bigger market than...
No, but what is called, there is another part of this which is super exciting as well, that Europe is becoming a hotbed actually for AI startups and research projects. And also if you go up, you can see that more actually people are moving to Europe than actually AI research and going to United States. So we have an inflow now of brain instead of drain brain that we had before. Here
That's
it is.
really positive.
Yes.
That's true.
So global tech employee arrivals and to and departure from Europe. So as you can see here, it's saying Europe is winning over international talent, and people are moving from US to work in Europe tech more than European talent moving to.
I wonder if they include US tech companies as European.
As you said, this might be very biased, but
Yes.
it doesn't matter. It's a super positive news. Okay, so don't ruin it. Move on to this one. That was all for me.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, should I go next? And perhaps it will be a bit boring topic because we started speaking about regulation a bit before, but I think we had an interesting development happening in Europe when it comes to regulation of AI. And France, Germany, and Italy actually joined forces now speaking about how to regulate foundational models. And if you look more into the AI Act and their latest kind of definition of what kind of regulation they should have. They have a specific regulation for foundational models per se, independent of what they're used for. So they're regulating the tech. And now the reason that France, Germany, and Italy went together may be a bit biased as well, because at least both France and Germany have their own large language models, the Mistral from France and Aleph Alpha from Germany. And they realize, if they are punishing these kind of super exciting new startups and initiatives in France and Germany, it will be problematic for them. But they said something that we have said, Henrik and me, time and time again.
We've been on this for so long.
And that is, we need to, and this is quoting the German digital minister, we need to regulate the applications and not the technology. I mean, it's so weird that we said this for so long, and finally we have some people that
and
understand.
Some people are saying it, and it comes out of many different reports, which is over and over saying the same thing. So
and all the people we had here on the podcast saying also the same thing, so many times.
But still, in the AI Act from that is the formal one, it doesn't say that way.
Yes,
unfortunately.
But it's kind of obvious as well. I mean, if you want to have this kind of rules or regulation for foundational models, not the application, you don't know what they are going to be used for. You just say, I'm going to train a new GPT-3 model. And now suddenly AI Sweden is going to have to regulate all these kind of things in advance before they know what it's actually going to be used for. How can they? I mean,
exactly.
It's impossible.
It's so stupid, because even in the GDPR laws today, if you have done any point working with data privacy officers, the first thing they want, I've had this problem because how can we make the platform GDPR compliant? And in reality, you can't, because you need to have the use case. The only way where they can apply the law is what is the application of the GDPR data.
How do you define high risk without telling that?
What we have been taught in how we do data privacy and everything like this is that basically the law states very, very quickly, you need to do a LIA in relation to a specific use of that data. And here now, why are we departing from that? I don't get it. I really don't get it. So because you can learn from GDPR, you can learn, we have been taught to work in a certain way, and now you're flipping the whole game on this. It's a completely, it's not making any sense.
It was a different section of European Union,
Yeah, no.
Departments do not collaborate.
Department A was working on that, and Department Y is working on this, and they don't like each other.
Exactly, that is the thing.
No, I'm really glad that people are moving in this direction, but it will be super interesting to see what happens to the AI Act now, when the at least three of the top superpowers in the EU are going against the EU Commission here, or the Parliament. I think this is driving this the most. How can they proceed when France, Germany, and Italy are saying this is not something we support? How can they even continue? I wonder, what will happen.
No, but I found this news a couple of months ago, quite detailed views from a US perspective, how they basically think
By the way, this news was from this week.
Yeah, this is from this week, but I'm just iterating that I actually did a very provocative LinkedIn statement in the lines of this, like what will happen now when basically we get to a point where you can say that this is anti-small business and stuff like that, and you get to a point where a country needs to basically say, no, I simply don't agree with these regulations. I don't agree with how that plays out. We get to a point where companies or organizations, for different reasons, no, this is not feasible to be part of. So it's a very high stakes game in the making. When three countries now, if we are on a collision course or something that might be one of the most important resources in the world,
and they should finish the AI Act this year, before end of year. What do you think?
No, I'm completely with you. I really think, but maybe it's a practitioner's view. As a practitioner, you're really it's very evident what should and what shouldn't be regulated. But maybe the EU Commission or whoever isn't. They aren't.
But there's so many good experts part of this game as well. So I don't know. It's really
but
tricky. Really tricky.
I'm completely with you.
But I mean, like, so regulation for sure, right?
Yeah.
It's how we do it, and not only the regulation itself, but the ecosystem around the regulation. So you get support and guidance, and lawmaking bodies to uphold, the regulation. So it's like the Biden, it's not only about the regulation; it's the whole package.
Yeah. But
I think we should standardize technology and regulate usage.
Yeah.
That is.
All right, let's leave it. That's enough.
Yeah.
Do you have any news?
Yeah. I have. There has been 2 new Chinese open source models. So one is called Qwen, and one other is called DeepSeek. You can find them both on Hugging Face, and I think it's this really interesting times when China is releasing like the best English open source models. Should we use them? I don't know.
That's interesting.
That's super interesting.
And I don't know their stance on certain issues.
Is it from Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu, or something?
I don't know yet, but it's from Chinese companies. Qwen with a W, I think. Let me see. You can do DeepSeek. Yeah, exactly. So it's 2 completely different. So you should probably take one at a time. And it's QWEN.
2W,
yeah. And then you can write Hugging Face or something afterwards. But yeah, so that's my just an observation that China is really going open source strong. And again, I don't know what do we know what these models contain? How were they done?
It's coming from Alibaba actually.
Yeah,
so
it's
one of the 3 top ones for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
It's nice they have an organizational card. Interesting.
And it's multimodal with audio and whatnot.
But they had a Chinese model called Wudao 2.0. I think it's like almost 2 years ago or something. It was like 10 times bigger than GPT-3. It was 1.7 trillion parameters in it. And they have been doing this for quite some time, right? Then the performance on it, we don't know. And can you trust what they're saying? That's kind of hard, right?
No, exactly. These models are top of the benchmarks, and hopefully they didn't train on like the benchmarks, right? But on the other hand, if this Q-stars news are out there, and maybe they know what that is as well. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Did they publish how the model looked like? Was it a GPT kind of style model?
Yeah. I think it's very open. They're just like have a really good data set that they're training on, and
it was good for English as well, right?
Yeah, it's supposedly the DeepSeek is really good for English.
It would be fun to hear what they think about the Himmelska Fridens Torg kind of
thing, right? If you dare to ask it.
Yeah. Okay, we shouldn't go there. Super interesting, and we can see that there are 2 main superpowers in the world doing this. It's tech giants of the US and the tech giants of China. They are far ahead of everyone else. But we have at least Mistral and Alpha, and they're trying to.
And we have the European Parliament as well. Don't forget about that one. It's a superpower regulation.
Okay. Yeah,
all right.
Okay. Yeah.
So
cool.
I made an effort to try to find news outside the LLM world.
Really?
Yeah. So Tesla, they released. They came out with release 12 of full self-driving, and they released
version 12.
Version 12 FSD version 12 came out to employees this week. So we're talking about update 2023-3810 for the nerdy ones, and this is a fairly big deal.
Yes, very big.
Because this release is actually when if you know the background, how the self-driving car in Tesla worked, they had a large portion which was still rule-based for a long time. And then they started to switching out to basically do everything deep learning. So basically, we are training how the car acts purely on video on video experience, and then they put that in beta, and now they are putting this out as they are basically taking away this is the release when now with the machine, the rule base is almost down to zero or very, very small. And what happens now is like it actually becomes way cheaper for them as a way to sort of move forward now, because you have a very simple rule base, and then it's all about the model, and the model you train big, and then you take the next update and drive it to the car. So this is a fairly big deal.
I think it's interesting also when speaking about AGI that we have, before they had, of course, deep neural networks for perception purposes, but as Tesla described it, they have three main parts. It's the perception, it's the planning, the reasoning, and control. Yeah. And these are really hard things. Perception has always been deep learning, machine learning based.
This is a camera, it sees what it is, it defines it's a dog, it's a cat, it's a stop sign. That perception part of AI.
And that's basically what GPT is today. It's just perception from going from text to some kind of vector space. Yeah. And then, it doesn't do that much. It's some kind of reasoning there, but it's very low level. It's not kind of iterative reasoning as we spoke of before. But now, before they had version 12, did manually rule encoding. So they have manual, people writing rules. This is a traffic sign. It's red, then stop, basically. And now they remove that, but they also removed the control part. So control basically means, should you accelerate? Should you brake? Should you turn left or right? And that part was also rule-based before. Yeah. And I think, even when you say Q star and which is potentially the reasoning part, the control part, the planning part that Tesla has. And you have, with Q-star, the ability to combine the perception of the GPT model with some kind of Q-star planning. They still don't have the control part. The control part would be also, what action to take. So control can be, in GPT sense, do a search on Bing or Google search, or it can be write an email, or it can be, if you connect it to some kind of robot, some kind of physical artifact, it can be go to the kitchen and pick up the plate. And that is really hard. The control part is very few companies that even work with.
And now we're putting that in a release that is now into car.
But even like Boston Dynamics, they have these kind of robots that are really cool. They can jump around, they can dance, they can do so many things, but they are not using deep learning for a control aspect.
Oh. There's really quite substantial part of rule-based in many of our systems. We talk about our drones. I mean, like even if you DJ like drones, right? Or they can fly, they're all this. A lot of the compute is still rule-based, right? Yes. But here now, Tesla is actually, now the rule-based part becomes very, very small with FSD release. And the interesting point is, of course, they've done it for a while, but now it's open employees, and now it's the release that is going to go out in the cars.
I think it's so big. People don't realize how big this is, because in version 12, they don't have to label stuff. They don't have to say, this is a lane, this is a traffic sign, this is a person, this is a car. It simply learns it. But
this also kind of comes back to something we talked about earlier. That so in a sense it's not hand labeled, but most likely, I mean, all the Teslas have cameras, right? And they collect data. But what they did is they designed the behavior by selecting the data, right? As we talked about in LLM. So in a sense you still kind of, you just don't have to touch like the really low details as you do with the rule base, but you still have to like, oh shit, it's really bad at intersections. Let's add some more nice intersection data, and that's how you should.
This is how you design it.
This is how you design kind of LLMs as well. Okay, it's really bad at browsing. Let's add some more browsing examples.
Like, I think you can phrase it. I would phrase it differently.
Though. Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm happy for discussions.
It's a good angle. It's a good angle though. Let's take
the problem with the rule-based approach is it's easy to handle the most common use cases. Yeah. When you're just driving on the highway, no problem, everything works. But when the extreme edge cases happen, some elephant walks across the street, what should you do? What's an elephant? You've never seen it. That is the really hard thing, to add manually encoded rules for all the kind of weird, strange, never happening kind of edge cases. But if you have a machine learning approach to it, then it can handle edge cases. I think this is really the big point. And I mean, it's the same for it's a big point.
But it's a big point. And it's also, if when you start marrying this out, it's a little bit like we have the LLMs, And like the whole Q star, all that thing, it's about this planning piece.
Yes.
It's about this control piece that is lacking.
That's why I think Tesla is so much further ahead in actually coming to some AGI, because they connected perception with reasoning and planning and control.
So
really
there is a rhetorical question. Who will win? The person who has figured this part out and gets better at LLMs, or who has the most Tesla AI supremacy?
Elon Musk has LLMs now also with growth.
And the robots.
But if you read
and the robots and Tesla bots.
it's right in it's in his biography. The argument like, okay, they have LLMs, we have this part. What's going to be easier for us to pick up this part or for them to pick up our part? Let's go.
Yeah.
So I think people don't understand how difficult this real world planning is.
Yes. The control part especially is super hard. Planning is hard as well.
No, I agree, but this also, we have some auto companies in Sweden, and I think so the planning is super hard, but also getting the data. Like all the
perception part is not easy either.
No, but we're not collecting enough data in Europe. Like all the trucks, Scania trucks and whatever, they should record everything.
But it's a brilliant move that Elon set themselves up for this success. From the beginning, right?
Yes, they planned it from the beginning.
And if you're a fanboy, there's moves he's made. First of all, he made the whole thing, but started recording. Then he made a very strong vertical integration from the sensor to the dojo very, very early. Very, very early vertical integration that you can't really get to if you don't own the value chain, so to speak. So some very fancy moves here. That's not easy copy.
It's weird times we're living in. It's happening so many things now, so it's quite crazy.